about owl medicine. And what does that even mean? In the shamanic realms, all plants and animals have their own medicine. Each thing, each living thing, everything with spirit, everything with energy has its own specific frequency and vibration. Each crystal has its own vibration, which is why certain crystals are good for certain healings, why certain crystals are good for certain journeys, for certain parts of the body. All plants have their own medicines. So when you are taking a journey with cacao, when you are ingesting coffee, when you are ingesting chocolate, when you're ingesting blue lotus, whatever herb, whatever plants you are using, even if it's through an oil or through a smell or just taking a meditation or a journey with that plant, you are engaging with the medicine of that plant. Lavender might be really good for something soothing, whereas lemon balm might be good for something more uplifting. Every animal has its own medicine. Eagle and hawk represent those higher visions, flying in the higher realms, the upper realms. Snake represents that beauty, the exposing of the belly, being flat on the earth, shedding the past. Hummingbird is filled with joy and longevity, so you need joy and inspiration to get through the long journey of life. So everything has its own specific vibration, representations, and medicine. And I was really drawn to owl medicine for this particular teaching. But then I started thinking, well, if all animals and plants have their own vibration, their own frequency, their own medicine, what is the medicine of the human? The human is unique in that we forget. Humans forget. My first thought was around emotions, because humans have a very unique journey around emotions. But then as I went deeper, I realized, no, everything has emotion, because emotion is a frequency caused by a belief or a thought. Animals have emotion. I believe plants can have emotion to a certain extent. Everything with energy can vibrate faster or slower according to whether it feels it's in danger or if there's any sort of anxiety happening. So it's not the emotion itself that makes humans different in their medicine. It's that we forget. It's the belief systems, it's the mind and how it works that makes human medicine different. Humans have the medicine of remembrance. When we come into this world, we forget who we are. We forget what we're here to experience. We forget why we want to experience it. Everything just becomes about us being lost and trying to find our way through life, right? Trees never think about whether or not they're worthy of being a mighty oak or not. Am I worthy of being 9 feet tall? Trees don't do that. Animals don't do that. Animals don't sit and think about whether or not they're going to be hurt again based on something that happened 5 years ago. Animals don't do that. There's a very now kind of knowing with the animal kingdom. Everything is just very present, in the present moment, experiencing directly what's in front of them. Also with plants, it's just this knowing of how big we are, of how expansive we are, of just who we are, and then growing to be that specific thing. Humans are the only ones that say, am I worthy of this right now? Am I good enough for this? Am I being accepted? We are the only ones that do that. And because we forget, that makes our medicine very specifically about remembrance. We also have the opportunity to remember. In our life's experience, we get to remember our authentic selves. And remember that your authentic self is not based on your woundings, your fears, or your insecurities and triggers. Your authentic self is who you are without those things. Your authentic self is who you are when you are not in a triggered state, when you can be exactly who you want to be, how you want to be in that exact moment, because you're not triggered, you're not fearful, you're not insecure, you are just flowing with all of life in full openness and love, exactly how you were meant to be. That's your authentic self. And that's what we're here to remember. That is our medicine of remembrance. I have this story. I'm not even sure if it relates to this or not, but I'm going to say it because it's coming into my mind. I was walking around the neighborhood, and I walked 3 times around the neighborhood. The first time I walked, I noticed this little white thing in a puddle. Just kind of passed through my mind. The second time I walked, I thought, that is an interesting little white thing. I think it's a rock. So I created a belief in my brain so that I didn't have to mess with it. The third time I walked, I said, that's definitely not a rock. And I touched it with my shoe and it moved. It was a little teeny bit squishy. So I picked it up and it's an egg. Just a small little egg. And I was like, okay, a little egg just laying out here all by itself in a puddle on the side of the road, so I'm going to take it home. And because of where it was, I assumed that it was a slider box turtle egg, like those red ear sliders. I assumed it was a turtle egg. So I take it home. I don't turn it upside down. I make sure that I put it just under the dirt somewhere in my backyard, closer to the woods, so that when it hatches, if it's going to hatch, it can just go out into the woods and live its beautiful, wonderful life. Well, come to find out later, as I'm doing a little bit more research, it was probably a snake egg, because they look extremely similar in shape and size. And so I buried a snake egg in my backyard. And I sat with that and I was like, okay, Spirit, so why, since everything happens for a reason and I'm always being guided, I am that person. I have so much faith that I know any single thing that happens, something good's going to come out of it. There's going to be something. There's a reason for everything, because I've lived enough of this to know that even when something bad happens, there's an inspiration to get out of it. There's an intention to set with it. And I'm like, why in the world did you let me bury a snake egg in my backyard? And you know what Spirit said back to me? Would you have taken it home and cared for it if you had known it was a snake egg? Okay, so now you're like tugging on my heartstrings, right? Like, would I have saved this little teeny baby, this innocent little baby, if I had known it was a snake instead of a turtle? I feel like the answer would have been yes. I probably would have saved the snake egg, but I would not have buried it in my yard. I would have taken it somewhere else, right? I would not have brought a snake into my home. Turtle, yes. Bring it into my home because they're peaceful. And I know that they're just going to go on their little way. A snake, I know inherently they're peaceful and they represent beauty and shedding. But also I don't know what kind of snake. And I have kids and I have animals and we have copperheads around here, right? So I don't know. I don't know that much about snakes. But I wouldn't have brought it, the point was I would not have brought it into my home had I known it was a snake. You can take that metaphor and run with it, right? I go back and check a week later when it's really eating at me that there's a snake buried in my backyard and I can't find it anywhere. I can't even find the egg. Like if it was hatched, the eggshell's not there. I have no idea where this thing is. It's just completely gone. So I don't have the end to that story yet. I don't know what the point of that story was, but there's something here with owl medicine, maturity, observation, trust, your feminine nature even, and seeing all things that has something to do with this. Because we can be kind and loving to all people and all creatures, remembering what we're here to do, that we're all here for our own experience, and still not invite snakes into your home. So owl medicine. When I sit with owl medicine, the first things that come to us, probably the same with you, it's all about observation, wisdom, maturity. We're thinking like masculine energies, those masculine energies of observation. And even the owl itself is so regal and beautiful, and you think of an aloof, masculine type of energy. I have owls here, and I'm here to tell you, I'm just going to tear that illusion down. Owls aren't like that. The owls out here, they sit there at night and they go, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo, and they just get it all night long with the silliest, stupidest sounding noises. I'm telling you. And there was a female that came into the yard one time, and it's like, hoo-hoo, and she's going, boo, and he goes, hoo-hoo, and she goes, boo, all night long. I'm telling you, it was the freaking, most ridiculous thing. All night long, they were acting like this. But what are you going to do besides just wake up and laugh? Because it sounds ridiculous. But owl medicine, I want to talk a bit about that maturity. When we think of owl medicine, quite often, if we were to relate it to an age, it'd be the elder. It'd be the grandmother, the grandfather, the crone. I don't relate it to someone older. I relate owl medicine to the mother, to the middle age, to the one that's learning themselves. Because owl has that ability to mature. They still have that playfulness, but they're living up here in the trees, seeing everything for exactly what it is. They're seeing all things, exposing all things. There is nothing that can get by an owl. No tiny little mouse crawling in the middle of the dark. Nothing is out of the view of the owl. And so this makes us mature. We have to mature, and we only mature by knowing ourselves. When we know ourselves and who we are and why we do the things that we do, what triggers us, how we can heal that, only by knowing ourselves, our true nature, and every aspect of our personalities, our emotions, our belief systems, only then can we really say that we know ourselves. And this affects our level of safety. Because when we are unaware of our triggers, of our reactivity, of our insecurities, that puts us in a space of fight or flight, survival mode, judgment, separation, immaturity. You don't have to be an elder to be mature. Maturity has nothing to do with age. Maturity has everything to do with knowing yourself. Self-awareness is where maturity lives. I heard something yesterday that said that when you start becoming interested in birds, that's how you know that your brain has reached full capacity, or that your brain has fully matured, when you start becoming interested in birds. So, owl medicine. It affects your safety levels, because when you understand yourself, your triggers, your insecurities, the holes that you have in life, your needs that need to be fulfilled, you can start giving that to yourself, and the world begins to feel like a safer place. The world is just the world. It is what it is. But you can have internal safety all the time when you truly know yourself. When you truly know yourself, that's what brings that maturity and that masculine energy. But it also embodies a very feminine energy. When we think about the owl, we also think about intuition, right? The owl is what holds that ability to see, hear, or feel events before they actually happen. It's the prophecy, and it's the cycles of night and then day. And who holds all of the intuition, all of those magical gifts, all of the cycles, the ups, the downs, the days, the nights? The feminine nature. So in order to be whole, owl medicine brings us into our feminine nature, allowing us to explore foresight, allowing us to explore our intuitive abilities, the ability to feel information with our clairs, with our energy field, to feel through the night. The night itself is a feminine energy with that moon shining bright. Owl medicine is so much about the feminine in the beginning. And once that feminine is expressed, once it knows itself, once it's moved through the cycles of the night, once it's seen all of the things there to see, once it's noticed all of the little movements, looking all the way around. Once it's culled everything out of the darkness and pinpointed where everything is, where it's all hiding, exposing it, bringing it into the light, then it becomes masculine, because then it knows. The knowing, the inner knowing, not the thinking I know and so exploring that, not the learning of the thing. That's feminine. The knowing, getting to the place where I have seen, I know, I have experienced, that is the masculine nature. So it brings the masculine and the feminine together in a very beautiful way, and owl medicine then becomes very whole. It becomes a moment of unity where we can unify within ourselves, where we can unify with nature, where we can unify with others. But that feminine beauty is really there to be explored. If you in your life are not exploring, creating, bringing things out of the darkness, you're not truly living in that feminine nature. And that means you're not maturing energetically, spiritually. All of these things go together in a very beautiful way. So since owl sees all things, because owls can turn their heads all the way around, that, like we said, they can see into the darkness, they can see all of those movements. What does it mean to see all things? If we see all things as humans, if we are journeying with owl medicine, if we're embracing owl medicine, this is where our discernment and our wisdom from experience. Remember, the knowledge and the gaining of the knowledge and the exploration is the feminine side. But once we have seen and gained from experience, then it becomes masculine wisdom. And once we have that discernment, that wisdom, the intuition, the prophecy, the cycles, along with that aloofness of, I've been here. I know how this is going to end. I've seen all of this. I've seen into the future. I've seen the past. That's when seeing all things becomes a way of embodying all things. You have connection to lineage, to the past, to things that have happened before, to truth, to clarity. You see those things clearly and you can speak the truth, because whatever that little mouse down there in the darkness thinks is happening, you from above can see the truth of what's actually happening. Whatever it thinks it's chasing it through the dark, the owl is the only one who can truly see what's chasing it through the dark. You have to have that higher vision to have true clarity. True clarity does not come from seeing things from your lower chakras. Your lower chakras are perfect and beautiful. They're meant for stability. They're meant for passion and creativity. They're meant for connection and love and speaking your truth. But they are not where you see the true thing from. The true thing comes from higher visions. You have to get high to see the truth, to have that clarity. And when you have connection to the lineage, to the things that have happened in the past, when you have that truth and clarity, then you can start to see beyond the veil, into the future. And so owl medicine and seeing all things specifically means connecting to the past, present, and the future in a very clear, open, truthful kind of way. There's a crystal clear glass in the center that holds all of this together. And then this is where owl medicine can move from being in the mother phase to being in the crone phase, because crone connects, it moves beyond the veil, and it connects death to rebirth, and it moves through all of these cycles back into its feminine nature again. And so owl medicine becomes something very connective, very whole, very unifying. And it feels so important that we have that specifically right now with whatever it is that's going on in your life personally or in the collective. So I invite you all this week, as you take this information into yourself, I invite you to really sit with owl medicine because we need this. This is more than just a word of teaching and just an FYI so you know. This feels like a calling at this specific time. I encourage you to take a shamanic journey with owl medicine. See if owl has a special message for you, or if owl can pour its medicine into you like water. If you don't know how to do that, set your intention on owl and set your intention just to bring in the thoughts and the feelings of owl anytime you can. Remember that this is that higher knowing. Remember all of the things that we talked about. Maybe you do your own research on owl and the metaphysical meanings of owl. But if your intention is on owl this week, you're going to receive exactly what you're meant to receive. And I have a feeling that it's going to start changing and rearranging things in our lives and in the lives of the collective energies. So this is a calling, a call to owl medicine. And I look forward to seeing what it does for you, how it shifts things over your week or over your month, what realizations come to you about yourself or about your life, about the world, and how we can bring in the masculine and feminine, the young and the mature, moving across the veil and bringing everything into a space of unity. I'm Mary Colozzo. Welcome home.